Welcome to another fine video in my Intro to HTML web video series. In this video, I'm going to talk about putting images into your HTML documents. Most people would say that you can't really have a website without images. I tend to agree. I think images make all websites a little bit more interesting. Today I'm going to show you how to put one in. It's pretty easy. It involves one tag, and it is an empty tag or self-closing tag. So if it's empty or self-closing, it looks like that. IMG space slash and then close out the brace. Now, to make an image work, we need to have an attribute associated with it. It's called the source attribute, SRC, equals quotation marks. And in between these quotation marks, this is where we put the path to the image. Just like when we make a link, we put the path in between the href attribute. Here, we'll put it in the SRC attribute. What we need to do is find an image. Now, there are several different ways we can do this. We could do this absolutely or relatively. And you learned about absolute versus relative in a previous video. I'm going to do absolute first. So I'm just going to find an image on the internet. I'm going to look up people, look for images. And we find all kinds of people. Here's an interesting picture right here. I'm going to bring up the full-size image. Now I can get this image in a couple of different ways. First way, if I right-click, I can save the image. And I can just save it to a folder. Or I can just copy the URL from the URL bar. To make an absolute link, we just need the URL. So I'm going to copy this URL, paste it into the source attribute, and save it. I'm going to run this page in Chrome, and there you have it. I put that image into a document. Now, I could put text above and below it if I want to, so if I wanted to, I could give it a small heading. Photo of people. Save it, refresh it, and there you have it. That's making an absolute link. It's an absolute link because it's linking to a specific spot on the internet. That location never changes. I'm linking to that one place. Now, one of the problems that can arise if you make an absolute link to an image is if the image disappears from that website. So for example, this image is hosted by a website called LuckyLabRescue.com. If LuckyLabRescue.com ever takes this image down, it's going to disappear from my web page too. So, I might want to do this relatively. In order to do that, you need to store the image in the same folder as your HTML on your server. So I'm going to right-click, Save Image As, and then I'm going to look for that location where I have my image, or where I have my HTML. And it is in links and images. My HTML is in this folder, and I'll just save it. I'm going to actually give it a different name. I'm going to call it people and save it. Now, I can do it a little bit differently now. I'm going to make a relative link. So copy the image tag, paste it down here, and instead of having the URL in the source attribute, I'm going to reference it by file name, people.jpg. Now, there are several different types of images out there. You might find JPG, you might find GIF or GIF, you might find PNG or PNG, you might even find the occasional TIFF or something like that, or BMP. JPG is going to be one of the most common. It's called the JPEG, which would be spelled like that, but the actual file extension doesn't have the E in there. It's just JPG. Now, if you don't reference this correctly, the image won't show up. So I'm going to save it, refresh it in the browser, and you see my picture showed up down here underneath the other one. See that? Now, let's say I don't reference it correctly. Let's say I do not have the correct file extension. I type JPEG. Save it, refresh it. That picture doesn't show up down there. See, I've only got one picture and I've got that broken image. you need to reference the file type correctly. If it's a bitmap, it has to be .bmp. If it's a PNG, it has to be .png. If it's a GIF, it has to be .gif. For JPEG, it's .jpg. Now, let's say I don't have the image saved in the same folder. If that's the case, for example, if I take the image out, I'm just going to exit out and paste it up here. The image doesn't work. It's broken. If I put the image back in there, and make sure that I'm referencing it correctly, the image shows up again. So, images are very easy. They use the image tag, img, the source attribute, src equals, and then you have to reference the file in some way. You can either reference it absolutely, which I strongly recommend against doing. I don't recommend doing it. Or you can reference it relatively by saving the file into your folder where your code is and then referencing it by file name. So that's making images. Easy stuff.